are back in 2024 for the crazy world of CEX, on my mission to visit every single CEX store in the entire world, and that means we are visiting the length and breadth of the United Kingdom and eventually the entire world. Welcome to my continuing mission to visit every CEX store in the entire world. From the weird to the wonderful, the big to the small, I am here to visit them all. This is the crazy world of CEX. Hello again, folks, and welcome back to the crazy world of CEX. My continuing adventure is to try and visit every single CEX store in the entire world. And over the course of 2023, we managed to visit over 30 different CEX stores here all around the UK. And this time we are visiting 3 brand new stores. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. Now, let's hit the road on the crazy world of CEX. We are starting off today's crazy world of CEX in Stockport, and like I said at the start of this episode, the crazy world of CEX has taken me all around the UK, and fear not, the 3 stores in this episode were not filmed in the same day. That would just be absolute insanity. But heading to the front window here in Stockport, we have a really nice collector's edition of Catherine. More about that game later in the episode, and randomly a lot of hair straighteners. But don't pass these up. Sometimes you can trade these into CEX for some really decent in-store credit. I think every single CEX store at the moment has one of these fantastic N64s, and honestly, to get the whole set is a real dream. Sticking with the N64 theme and going to the glass cabinet of dreams, we have some N64 heavy hitters. We have Banjo-Tooie and Conker's Bad Fur Day. Sadly, a bit of a faded GameCube, but it is at a discounted rate, which is a really good thing to see. So if you are looking to get a cheap GameCube, that is one way to do it. Some box Nintendo cardboard awesomeness. The really nice Pikachu N64, in my opinion, one of the best looking N64 games. A Saturn heavy hitter with Bomberman there. Some Metroid, some Zelda, some really good retro in here, and I like how they themed the cabinet. So that was a Nintendo cabinet. Heading into here, we have the Far Cry 3 Insane Edition for the PlayStation, and I am going to have a better look at that one later, as it is a collector's edition that has been on my list for a long while. As always, whenever I go to a CEX store, I always check out the Nintendo Wii U section. And this section is getting smaller and smaller, and it's getting less and less often that I actually find a game I need for the Wii U. I think there's only about 130 games released for the Wii U in the PAL region. I think I've got about 80, but it is getting really hard to find any games that I still need, much like the GameCube. One thing that really blew me away about the Stockport branch of CEX was its PlayStation 3 section. It was just filled with bangers. I just kept finding loads and loads of games in here which I've never seen before, which, in all honesty, every CEX store I seem to visit around the country, their PlayStation 3 section is getting smaller, but this one was absolutely stacked, and it had just absolutely fantastic selection, like the staples, like your Dark Souls, all your kind of classics you imagine, your Ratchet and Clank games, but even some of the harder to find Ratchet and Clank games. Yes, Towards Destruction is quite common, but some of these games are getting harder and harder to find, and these are the kind of games I think now is the time to pick up the exclusives, because these are the games which in the future are going to get more expensive, and the kind of weird alternate versions, like this lenticular cover of Ratchet and Clank. We all know I love a lenticular cover. These are the kind of things which I think in the future are going to get harder to find, and as the PlayStation 3 prices just get lower and lower, now it's a great time to pick these games up, much like the OG Xbox. These prices have been dirt cheap for absolute ages, but it's games like this, Panzer Dragoon, which are slowly going up in price. Again, an exclusive to this console, and one of the games which I think in the future is going to go up. Let's have a closer look at this Far Cry 3 Insane Edition then. And here's the thing, when it comes to retro game collecting, for myself it is all about condition. And honestly, because I visit so many CEX stores, I can afford to be picky, and it sounds really finicky, but this packaging was a little tiny bit wrinkled, so I did decide to pass on this time. Now, this was really cool in Stockport, and I actually nearly missed this entire section of retro here. This is where they had some of their high-end retro, some of their bigger PlayStation 1 titles, some nice Dreamcast games, Rocket Knight Adventures for the Mega Drive, anyone? Some really nice boxed Game Boy Color games, and some really good boxed everything, really. This was a really good section, and it was basically the creme de la creme of their retro section, all wrapped up in one really nice glass cabinet of dreams. Next up on the crazy world of CEX, we are heading to Hertford, and Disclaimer, they were actually having a stock take in this store when we visited, so if it does seem like it's a little bit sparse and there's not really so much here as you'd usually expect, that is why. Now, this was a small CEX store, but you know what we say here on the crazy world of CEX, size doesn't matter. It's all about what is in store, and I still managed to find some bangers. So as you can see here, yes, this is a very small CEX store, but no, there is not a single inch of wasted space here. And let's jump straight into the glass cabinet of dreams. And straight away, we have not one, but two Wii U's. So we have the failed U-Draw tablet for the Wii. I think a thing that could get rarer in the future. A pretty good selection of GameCube games, some Wii heavy hitters, some unboxed N64 games. Just a really good selection of retro once again in here. And definitely really good if you collect unboxed retro. But let's take a closer look at these GameCube games here. So definitely some heavy hitters were here, especially with WarioWare Inc., a game you do not see very often. Actually took me a very long while to find out for my own personal collection, as well as Super Mario Sunshine, a game which is surprisingly going up in value very, very slowly. And you can see here a really nice Tekken 7 arcade stick, some good controllers. It amazes me how PlayStation 4 controllers seem to hold their value, as well as Nintendo Switch controllers. A lot of these Switch controllers, especially if you get some of the more obscure colours, are getting very expensive again, much like the DS and 3DS consoles. If you get some of the weird variants of these, some of these hold their value very, very well. And here we have a small selection of PlayStation games. Unfortunately, nothing here I needed platinum wise, but this was really cool to see. The Mario Paint with the mouse, and more importantly with the mouse mat. Definitely something I'm looking for boxed. We're starting off this time in the Nintendo Switch section, and a game I've never seen before, Disaster Report. But let me know in the comments down below, is this from the same people that made Disaster Day of Crisis? As I absolutely love that game, and honestly, if I could find another game in that franchise, I would definitely pick it up. A really, really underrated franchise. Nothing much to see here in the Nintendo Switch section, because honestly, it's quite rare I find anything that I'm looking for my Switch collection here in CEX, because most of the games are expensive. Other than this one, Nintendo Labo, £2. Now, I've been collecting Xbox 360 games since the console was released, and it never ceases to amaze me that I keep finding new games which I've never heard of for the Xbox 360, and honestly, I'm quite a fan of these World War II flight sims, so I'm surprised I've never seen this air conflicts game before for the Xbox 360. I did pass today, but let me know in the comments down below, what is your favourite hidden gem Xbox 360 game? There is literally hundreds. There are so many great games on the OG Xbox, but if you are a first-person shooter fan like myself, then this is without a doubt one of the best. Black. Honestly, one of the best first-person shooters I've ever played, and if you want to go back and play this one, I think it's actually on Games Pass of EA Access. Into the PlayStation 3 section, and again, a lot of games here that I've never seen before, and some of these games are definitely starting to go up in value, and these are the games that it's worth getting now. And it's not even these more obscure games, it's some of the big franchises such as Ratchet and Clank. Yes, as I said earlier, some of these games are still quite cheap, but these are definitely going to go up in price, especially some of the more obscure entries into this absolutely fantastic franchise, so grab them now. And speaking of obscure, I am searching the PlayStation 4 section here for a very obscure PlayStation VR game. That's right, it's the Angry Birds Movie 2. That's because I'm looking to get all of the PlayStation VR games at the moment because they are super cheap. There's never been a better time to collect for the PlayStation VR. This is something I always love to see in CEX, these random Nintendo DS games with the peripherals, such as I think this is a walking game. I expect when this first came out it was super expensive, and it's amazing you can pick this up with the peripheral now for just £2. I did leave it behind because honestly, do I really need it? No. A small CEX here, but I'd still managed to pick up a game I've been looking for a very long while. 2 down, 1 to go here on the crazy world of CEX. For our final CEX this time, once again we are crossing the country, this time to Southend on Sea, and looking in the window of this store, nothing much to write home about, except it's the second time ever I've seen plastic plants in a CEX window. Now this was just before Christmas, thus the Christmas decorations, but other than the potted plants and the Christmas decorations, there's not really too much to write home about here. Yes, the Smash Bros controller there is very cool, some nice little GameCube bits, but let's hope there's something a little bit more exciting inside. Heading inside and straight to the glass cabinet of dreams, and this is more like it. Loads and loads of awesome loose Nintendo cartridges. Yes, most of the time when I'm looking at these, I'm looking for box, but it's always good to see these games even if they are loose. A nice little PlayStation 1 collection, some other good cartridge games, a bit of Dreamcast, some Master System, but everything here is not what it seems. But first off, we are heading to the PlayStation 4 section. You can see, again, this is a fairly large CEX store, so let's hope we can find something cool hiding on the shelves here. Straight away I saw this in the Xbox One section, City Skyline Xbox One Edition. Now, I am sure a couple of months ago this game was super duper cheap. Maybe it's because it's come off Games Pass. If you know why it's suddenly gone up in price, let me know in the comments down below. But this looks like a real bargain. Commandos 2 bundled with another game for just £4. Again, I think this one is on Games Pass, but for a double pack of two absolutely classic games for £4, I thought this one's a pretty good deal and nearly picked it up. Into the PlayStation 3 section, there was some really heavy hitter games here, including 50 Cent Blood on the Sand, a game which I'm surprised is getting more expensive, but unfortunately a lot of the heavy hitters here had their covers reprinted, which is all well and good if you are simply looking to play a game, but as a collector I am looking for the original artwork, and if I'm paying 15-20 quid for a game, I want it to have the original artwork. As I said, it was a really solid PlayStation 3 section that even had a nice little Turok Steelbook here, which I already had in the collection. But here is a game I've been looking for a while, but that price tag is super high. Splatterhouse, definitely one I want to add eventually to my collection. The Southend-on-Sea branch of CEX had a really solid GameCube game selection. There were some really good games in here. They're in really nice condition, and some games you do not see very often, which honestly is getting harder and harder to collect for the GameCube. And honestly, I think I've got about 95% of the games I want for this console. I would have picked up Blood Rain 2, but unfortunately it was one of the very few games here that wasn't in the best condition, so I did have to pass. For the second time this episode, here is a game I'm definitely grabbing for my collection, Catherine for the Xbox 360. I looked at this game last time in the last episode of the Crazy World of CEX, and it was £15. It has since dropped to just £10, and yes, I'm going to pick this up for £10. It is a strange game. Make sure it's complete though. It has a large manual. You definitely want to grab that. So as I said earlier, the glass cabinet of dreams here isn't all it seems. First off, they have one of my most wanted WWE games, this WWE 2K Collector's Edition with an eye-watering price tag of £90. One day it'll be mine, but not today. Here's another collector's edition, which I do have in my collection, and I cannot believe this one is now fetching £60 for one of the worst looking collector's editions of all time. Fantastic game, but such an incredibly ugly collector's edition, which I had to have in my collection because it's so strange. But this is what I mean. Everything was not as it seems. Hiding in the back was a massive stack of retro. And spoiler alert, I picked up one of these games because not only was it in absolutely amazing condition, but it was dirt cheap. And this is what I love to find in CEX. Cheap, mint condition retro, even if it is hiding. So that was the Southend-on-Sea branch of CEX, a really solid store, and it was fantastic to finally pick up Catherine for the Xbox 360. Sometimes you win with CEX prices, sometimes you lose, and today was a big win. But there's just one last thing to do in this episode, and that's head to my local CEX store here in the fine city of Norwich. Here we are then at my local CEX store, and here's the thing, normally when I go shopping in my local store, I have a rough idea of what I'm looking for, and recently I've really been wanting to replay Fallout 4, but with all of the expansions, because some of these look absolutely awesome, but the problem is, you cannot buy a physical copy of this game with the expansions on the disc. That's because, unfortunately, they are a download code, so I did have to pass on this one, which was a real disappointment. Next up is a PlayStation 4 exclusive I've been really wanting to play, The Last Guardian, and this is super cheap at the minute in CEX, just £6. But this copy of The Last Guardian literally looks like it's been mauled, quite possibly by The Last Guardian. This game was very rough. This is a very common game, so hopefully I'll pass and find a better copy in the future. But this time, my lucky find of the day was in the PlayStation 2 section, and a Steelbook, which I have never ever seen before, and this steelbook is an absolute thing of beauty and a real win here in my local CEX store. Now, back to the games room for the pickups. Here we are then, back in the games room from 3 brand new CEX stores, and straight away in Stockport I managed to pick up an OG Xbox banger that I've been after for the longest time, Panzer Dragoon Auto. And here is the thing with collecting for the OG Xbox, it has been cheap for so long, but these prices can only stay cheap for so much longer. The prices of these games are slowly increasing, and I think it's games like this, Panzer Dragoon Auto, which were exclusive to the OG Xbox, which are only going to get more expensive. So I wanted to grab this one now while it's only 15 quid. It is of course boxed and complete with a manual, and honestly, it is one of the best games on the OG Xbox. Next up, we were off to Hertford, and unfortunately they were doing a stock take while we were there, and even though this was a slightly smaller CEX store than most of the stores we visited this time, I still managed to find a low-key hidden game which I've been trying to find for ages. That's because at the moment I genuinely believe it is the cheapest time to collect for PlayStation VR, and mark my words, in the future these games are only going to get more expensive. That's why I picked up this game, the Angry Birds Movie 2 Under Pressure VR. That's because, here's the thing with these VR games, you never know what games are going to be in stock when you go into any CEX store, and honestly, I very rarely see this one, so for a £5, now was the time to buy it. Finally this time, we were by the seaside in Southend on Sea, and I picked up an Xbox 360 game which surprisingly has gone down in value. But again, mark my words, a lot of the Xbox 360 games are dirt cheap at the moment, but these low prices will not remain forever, and I think it is games such as this one, Catherine, which are only going to get more expensive in the future. I think the last time we saw this game on the crazy world of CEX, it was £15, and now it's down to £10. And here's the thing, prices fluctuate all the time at CEX, and I'm kind of glad I waited to grab this one a little bit later and get it at a cheaper price. And oh my, what a game this is. I don't think my description can do this one justice. I think essentially you're having an affair on your girlfriend or wife with an imaginary. It's very strange. I have put this trailer up in the corner here, but it's definitely one of those games you want to try out. It is surprisingly actually a puzzle game at its core. Again, this one is complete with a fairly hefty manual, so if you are looking for this game, make sure you get a complete copy, and honestly, try and grab this one now while it's cheap. Finally this time, from Southend on Sea, we have the perfect example of why I love shopping in CEX. What keeps me going on my adventure to try and visit every single CEX store in the entire world? Bargains like this, Space Gun for the Master System. This is a boxed and complete Master System game with a manual in absolutely exquisite condition for just £10. Now this is a game I've never heard of before, but the artwork alone is worth the £10 asking price. And this is the thing with shopping in CEX, you never know what you're going to find, but when you find bargain retro like this, boxed and complete for £10 in 2024, it's always worth a look. Finally this time on the crazy world of CEX, as is tradition, we visited my local CEX store here in the fine city of Norwich, and we have another perfect example of why I love shopping in CEX. Now, you may have seen on the sister series to this series, Steelbook Hunting in CEX, normally when you go into any CEX store, they will normally, about 90% of the time, charge the same amount for the Steelbook version of the game as they do of the standard version. And sometimes you can find Steelbooks that you never knew existed. Like, I never knew there was a Steelbook for Area 51 on the PlayStation 2. Now, it is fairly rare to get PlayStation 2 Steelbooks, and this one is in absolutely incredible condition. And even crazier, this was just £2.50. I could not believe when I saw the kind of Steelbook replacement for this on the shelf in Norwich CEX. I am struggling to find a copy of this anywhere, and it just goes to show sometimes you can find something really rare but really cheap in CEX. There we have it then, folks. That is 3 more CEX stores crossed off the list of the frankly hundreds that I still have to visit all around the world. Now in 2023 I managed to visit over 30 CEX stores, and here's hoping in 2024 I managed to visit even more. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and who knows, maybe next time I'll be visiting your local CEX store here on the crazy world of CEX. See you all soon!